5 facts about the wildest prison break you've likely never heard of. Before we start, I would like you to hit that red subscribe button so that you never miss out on any of our videos. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Crime Junkies. 5. The cons disappear into the night. Before the convicts escaped, they had raided the guards' pockets and personal items. In that looting, they found almost $800 in cash. They also came away with cartons of cigarettes and several more changes of clothing. So in their minds, they were well outfitted for a rushed trip up north to Canada. Their feeling on that border move was simple: the Canadian government has long been opposed to capital punishment. And while the men may have eventually gotten caught north of the border, the Canadians wouldn't extradite anyone who would be sent back to a country to be executed. So Canada was the game plan. But first, they had to split up. With the bomb threat ploy and the disguises, the 6 men had gotten a head start. The van helped them get away much more quickly than they would have on foot. 4. Police start rounding them up. Thankfully, Virginia cops acted quickly and got right on the van's trail. The next day, 2 of the inmates were apprehended by police in the small town of Warrenton. They were Earl Clanton Jr. and Derek Peterson, and they hadn't managed to get very far at all after escaping. Clanton was spotted at a local laundromat in the city. An eagle-eyed resident called in his description, and police came rushing. Peterson was handcuffed as he walked out of a convenience store in town hours later. Cops in Warrenton also found the escape van itself. It was empty and ran aground on the side of the road, so it was immediately clear that the other 4 inmates had ditched it to use other means of escape. 2 other inmates nearly made it all the way to Canada, though. Lem Tuggle Jr. was arrested days after the escape in the city of Woodford, Vermont. He was only about 250 miles, 402 kilometers, from the Canadian border at the time. Incredibly, he had been dumb enough to rob a convenience store in that town at knifepoint. 3. The Briley brothers get caught last. But while the other 4 men were caught in pretty short order, the Briley brothers proved a bit more elusive. They stuck together after the prison break and headed north for Philadelphia. Days turned into weeks, and police had no solid leads on where they could be. Despite the brothers having made connections with former associates in Philly, nobody ratted them out to cops. Nobody, that is, until Tuggle tried to strike a deal with prison officials. He told cops the brothers had been dropped off outside Philadelphia and were likely still in that area. The FBI looked into the brothers' distant family members in Philadelphia and learned of their whereabouts. From there, they quietly descended on the area and set up observation points around the neighborhood. The FBI knew they were hot on the trail when they found a pair of prison guard uniforms hanging carelessly from some tree branches. 2. But get executed first. By this point, the feds were fed up with Linwood and James Briley. Virginia prison officials didn't care much for them either. After all, their prison escape had made national headlines for 3 weeks. The whole time, the Briley brothers' brazen move to thumb their nose at the law made Governor Godwin's state-of-the-art prison and its officials look like amateurs. Plus, Linwood and James had already both been convicted of unspeakable horrors that got them on death row in the first place. So when they were recaptured, law enforcement officers, prison officials, and the public all collectively wanted to see justice served. For these deadly death row escapees, that meant execution by the state. Linwood was the first Briley brother to die. He appealed his initial death sentence all the way to the Supreme Court, but they refused to hear it. So on October 12, 1984, he was executed by the state of Virginia. And then, it was all over. 3 years after James Briley died, Earl Clanton became the next escapee to be executed. He was executed by the state of Virginia in April 1988 after exhausting all of his legal appeals. Unlike the Brileys, he actually expressed remorse for the murder that landed him in jail. But it wasn't enough to save him. Similarly, Derek Peterson appeared to show some remorse for his past crimes. But appeals courts weren't swayed by his sob story, especially considering how he'd been involved so intimately in the escape. So Virginia sent him to his death in August of 1991. His electrocution had to be repeated after it didn't fully work the first time. In that final moment, Peterson was again an embarrassment to Virginia prison officials. But with his death, 4 of the 6 prison escapees were now gone. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen, because I'm sure you'll love them.